Welcome to Inside Out, Mental Health at Work and Beyond. Imagine walking through life with an invisible weight on your shoulders, a weight so heavy that it drains you, yet no one seems to acknowledge it. Instead of removing the burden, society tells you to build stronger muscles, to carry it better. This is how we treat mental health today. We hear it constantly. We're in the middle of a mental health crisis. Anxiety, depression, burnout, they're everywhere. The solution? Therapy, medication, self-care, and resilience training. But what if we're looking at it all wrong? The more we frame distress as a mental illness, the less responsibility society has to change. If our struggles are labelled as personal failings, then employers don't have to fix toxic work cultures. Governments don't have to tackle economic inequality, and institutions don't have to acknowledge systemic injustice. Instead, we're told to cope. We're handed mindfulness apps instead of fair wages. We're prescribed medication instead of policy changes. We're encouraged to adjust, adapt, and accept rather than demand better. But here's the truth. This isn't a mental health crisis. This is a crisis of survival in a world that wasn't built to support us. Take Sarah. She works long hours in a job that barely pays enough to cover rent. She's exhausted, anxious, and overwhelmed. When she finally reaches out for help, she's given breathing exercises and a mindfulness app. But her real problem isn't stress. It's financial insecurity, job instability, and the constant fear of not making ends meet. Sarah isn't unwell. She's surviving in a system that was never designed for her to thrive. So if mental illness isn't the root cause of our distress, what is? It's the world we live in. The relentless pressures, the injustices, the crushing expectations that were never meant to be humanly possible. The stress of choosing between rent and food isn't a mental illness. It's economic injustice. Survivors of childhood abuse, domestic violence, and sexual assault aren't unwell for carrying the weight of their past. Feeling burned out in a job that undervalues and underpays you isn't a symptom. It's a consequence of a broken system. The pressure to look, act, and live a certain way isn't about self-esteem. It's an industry designed to make us feel inadequate. Stressing over bills, loans, and medical expenses isn't an anxiety disorder. It's the result of a system that prioritizes profit over people. And yet, instead of demanding change, we're told to just take a deep breath and cope. This isn't a mental health crisis. This is a crisis of survival. When we challenge these issues, the response is often the same. Have you tried therapy? Have you considered medication? Now let's be clear. Therapy and medication can be life-changing. They save lives. For many, they are essential. But they should be a bridge to healing, not a replacement for a fair and just society. Because if we focus only on individual treatment, we ignore the bigger problem. Framing suffering as a mental illness does something dangerous. It shifts blame away from those responsible. It silences discussions about systemic reform. It convinces us that we are the problem, rather than the world we live in. This is gaslighting on a massive scale, and it keeps us quiet. It keeps us exhausted. It keeps us believing that if only we were stronger, if only we were more resilient, we wouldn't feel this way. But we are not weak. We are not coping. We are responding exactly as any human should in a world that makes life unbearably difficult. So, what happens if, instead of just medicating distress, we actually address its root causes? What if we prioritized fair wages, affordable healthcare, and housing security? What if we treated trauma survivors with justice instead of prescriptions? What if we dismantled workplace toxicity rather than forcing employees to manage their stress? What if we held institutions accountable instead of asking individuals to just be resilient? We don't need more people who have mastered the art of coping. We need a world that stops breaking people in the first place. The narrative is shifting. More people are recognizing that mental health struggles don't exist in a vacuum. they are directly tied to the systems we live under. So, here's my challenge to you. The next time someone talks about the mental health crisis, ask, what's causing it? When a friend says they're burned out, anxious, or depressed, ask, what's making them feel that way? When you see someone struggling, instead of just telling them to seek help, ask, how can we change the world so they don't have to suffer in the first place? This isn't a mental health crisis. This is a crisis of survival. If this episode made you think differently, don't let the conversation end here. Start a discussion with a friend. Question the narratives you see in the media. Push for workplace changes. Support policies that address these systemic problems. We don't just need better conversations, we need action. What would happen if, instead of fixing people, we fix the world they live in? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Send me a message, share your experiences, and let's keep this conversation going. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, your feelings aren't a flaw. They're a signal that something bigger needs to change. Until next time, take care and keep questioning the world around you.